and this is The In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We got another great show. We have two great in-studio guests, Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams. How are you two today?
Pretty good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Gus. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you bet. You bet. I'm doing well. Thank you. You have a compelling story.
We like to think so.
Absolutely. You we're really here to talk about your book.
Our book.
Which One Am I?
Yes.
Absolutely. Which is the story of Darrell's life, surviving dissociative identity disorder, which is shorthand for that's DID, but probably most listeners, most people know it by its old name, which was multiple personality disorder, like Sybil.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Very much shorthand.
And I know its diagnosis, it's kind of evolved. That's why the name changed
Yes,
and
sir.
everything. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Constantly. It's still evolving.
Yes.
That's one of the things we did trace in Which One Am I is how dissociative identity disorder has been perceived
Yes.
through, well, at least through Darrell's life, which is when the big changes evolved from Three Faces of Eve, through Sybil, through the much detested United States of Terror.
Bad show. Bad representative of people with DID. People, to me, it was basically making fun of people with DID. And I detest anything that makes fun of people's disabilities, and especially with disability like mine. They make a lot of people see it on TV and then they think, oh, it's just made up. But it's not made up. It is real, and we're real. And people don't understand still today what it is. When they hear it, they think, oh, DID, schizophrenia. But it's not. It's similar, but it's not. I don't see people sitting in front of me talking back at me and me talking back at them while I'm sitting at an empty table. And it's like I'm right here right now with you and Tom. I'm sitting here with you talking, and all you see is me. And sometimes I'll switch if they choose to want to be known, or I don't like people to try to bully me out to having them come out. I don't like that, and I've had people at some of our readings do that to me. And I know the signs of the words that they ask and everything, especially when they find out that I have different races and different languages and everything, that some people will start talking to me in their language, and I'm going like, don't even go there, because that's bullying. To me, that's bullying.
Right.
I mean, if you want to see a freak show and a clown show, go to the circus.
Yep. Yeah, right.
And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
and I've lived with this, I've struggled with this, and it's always been my dream to let people know about it, because of all the bad court cases of people pretending to have it. You could read up on it and everything, but I didn't learn how to read until I was 30 years old. And so when my doctor asked me if I ever seen Sybil or anything like that, when growing up in the South, we were not allowed to watch TV or anything. We were made to go outside and play as children. And, so when she started asking me all these questions, and I'm looking at her like, dumbfounded, just right now, like silence, and it's like, one thing, I don't know how to read. And so by wanting to write the book and everything, I went back and I wanted to learn how to read, so I did. And when I met Tom, the book wasn't even in his thoughts at the time, and
No.
and so it's always been my dream to write about growing up in the South and discovering about DID and everything, because I went like a bull with horns to learn about it, and I did. And I had the best therapist in the world. She actually lives here in LA, and her name is Dr. Sharon Higgins, and she is one of the best in the field. That's what she has always done all of her life.
What's surprising and horrifying to us both is that we've discovered that maybe it's because of the history of misinformation out there, because most of what you read in Sybil is A, it's very much out of date, and and B, it's just wrong. So most of what people think they know about dissociative identity disorder is incorrect. We are reaching, and we're very happy about this, reaching a lot of other DIDs. People would be really surprised, because we sure are, at how many other DID patients, untreated, misdiagnosed, basically feel they don't have any support, who have been coming to our readings, who have been talking to us online, internationally. It's an international thing.
Fantastic.
And yeah, we're also been hitting a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, some of whom don't even really know that it exists. It's not a trendy diagnosis at this point in time.
Right.
Even though they study it in medical school, it's in the medical journals.
Right.
And before you finish medical school, you have to know about DID. You have to know everything about it.
Right.
And just because you're not taking that particular field, you still have to know about it in case you come across a patient like me. And I've been to the doctors and stuff where I've had nurses look at me, because I say, okay, there's things about me that you have to know and everything, because I can be dangerous at times. And, if certain things, if people come up behind me, and she says, well, what's it? And I says, well, number one, I have DID. And she says, oh, you're schizophrenic. Oh, I've dealt with those. I said, excuse me, I'm not schizophrenic. DID, dissociative identity disorder, means, if you ever heard of Sybil, that's me. She says, oh, no, I thought that was all made up on TV. And I'm going, what? And I'm like, but I'm the patient with this, and you're the nurse. You went to med school. I didn't, and you know nothing about it. And it's like, okay, how stupid do you feel? And she kind of like just cackled and just walked out with her head hanging down. It was like, okay, how many more of these people am I going to have to come up and deal with and everything? Because by law, I'm supposed to tell.
Yes.
And everything, because anything could happen that actually caused that person to exist, and everything that triggers me. And if I'm not aware of something happening, and someone comes up behind me, especially a man, and it's like, okay, don't touch me from behind, because I'm not responsible for what happens, and so I don't get shots in the butt. So don't use that as an excuse, ladies and gentlemen, please. You always need your shots. It's scary from all the abuse and stuff. A lot of people don't understand what DID is caused from. It's caused from trauma and some stress, and it's caused from sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, and psychological, and all that.
Generally before the age of 6.
Before,
6 seems to be the magical cutoff point when the human brain is capable of dealing with trauma. It varies, obviously, from person to person, but within the DID circles, that's usually seen as the cutoff point. So Darrell his was mostly emotional and physical abuse before the age of 6. So we went through detailing, and which is one of the things we tried to answer. For me as a journalist, I've been trained as a journalist. I've taught journalism. I've worked as a journalist I still do sometimes when I get paid for it, and I needed to know the answer to the question that none of the other DID memoirs ever asked, which is why this happened. Wasn't enough for us to put out to them that this is this and this and this occurred. That's what you read in Sybil, and God knows I've talked to a lot of other DID authors, and their books, God love them, thank you for putting down your story in writing, but they never do answer the why. So we went back. We had to go back one generation. I think in retrospect it would have behooved us to go back another generation, but unfortunately it was just impossible. It was impossible to trace that far back.
The research.
May I ask, was there a willingness as you pursued, to find out why, was there a willingness to talk about it, or were they reluctant to talk about it as you did your investigation?
They still are.
I can imagine.
They still are reluctant. They still are
deny a lot of things.
Deny. That's
like all my life I always had a thought that the father that I had was not my father. So I went and searched for my real father, not knowing that my father was right up under my nose. That there's a woman named in the book called, her name is Bertha Merriman, and I knew her all my life growing up as just a family friend. And it turned out to be, she's actually my cousin. Her uncle is my father. And I had no idea that he was that close to me. And I always loved this woman, but when we went back to see her, it was like, okay, I'm not that 8-year-old anymore, so she kind of like, felt like that's where I told her I had DID. She was just like, okay, okay.
But once again, we're dealing with a lot of people in a completely different culture who don't even understand what it is, much less want to believe in it.
Right.
And it's kind of hard.
Yeah,
to,
amazing, and I congratulate you
you.
for having the courage not only to face it for yourself, but to bring it to others that they too can gain courage. That's amazing story.
Well, I just believe that God had me to do this as a calling to help others that may not know that there are people out there. Because I thought I was the same way. I thought that I was the only one. I thought
Yes.
that there was no one out there that could help me.
Right.
And I needed the help, so I sought it out. And I used to just sit with just a counselor and talk about things. And she says, "There's a doctor I want you to meet." And so
That's wonderful. Because I want to get into your treatment and a little bit more about your background, if you don't mind, and of course how you and Tom met, and how that's going on and such.
Our life is an open book. It's just called Which One Am I?
Hey,
yes.
fantastic. Thank you for coming in and sharing this story, because I know there are going to be countless of people who can gain courage from it, like I said.
Hope so.
We hope so.
really hope so.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to take a quick commercial break, so we still got plenty of time to talk. Thank
All
you.
right.
Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you're listening to The In Show. And we have in-studio guest, Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams, and they are talking about their book, Which One Am I? And, of course, all the background that it took to write that book. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. You hang in there. We'll be right back. And this is The In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summers. It's good to be back with you today. We got another great show. We have in-studio guests, two wonderful authors of a book called Which One Am I? Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams again.
Hello.
Thank you for coming in and sharing your story. You were mentioning how when someone talks with you and they try to bully out these other personalities. Out of ignorance, out of what's their motive? Are they trying to see what the other person, that other person does, or are they just let me see if this is true? Type
Yeah, it is. It could be a number of things. The way that it could either be a doctor that's in the audience that's to see if what I'm saying is actually match up with what they've learned, or it could just be some out of ignorance. And I've had plenty of those.
Sure. You mean a trained professional?
Yeah.
Someone who knows this will come up and try to get this from you.
Yeah, they will ask questions and everything, and like they'll listen to what Tom has to say when he's reading the story and everything, and about the triggers and stuff like that's in the book. And it's like, okay, let's see if
this is
it's
true.
true.
So they'll purposely maybe, for example, come up behind you or what have you,
Yeah.
and see.
Or they'll try to they'll start saying little things to me that will either offend me to the point where I get angry,
Yeah.
to where the one that is the protective one comes out, which I've learned to be on guard with that. Being up in front of people, you learn not to let that get to you.
Yeah,
So,
It's showbiz. You don't know what's going on.
That's right.
You just
and,
don't.
And just people in general wanting to know, to hear someone with this problem that they experience, so they want to actually know what other people see in them and the difference and everything. The voice may change, which
Right.
or their facial expressions may change. Like on the back of my book, there are pictures of me that are all different, that I had no idea myself that none of them match. The
Right.
facial expressions do not match each other. And it was like, I had no idea that my facial expressions actually changed so much.
Yes.
And it was surprising to me that when people would come up to me and say, I know you, or, do you remember me? You look so familiar, and I'm going like, I don't think so. Where do you mean? Just one of those things, and it's just, or, someone that would just be darn right mean,
Yes.
in the way that they would ask things and
Right.
everything. And, they're trying to they want to sound nice, but they're really not being nice.
Yes.
And it's like, I've gone through this all of my life, so I've picked up on the little snide remarks, the little comments, which Tom hasn't yet, but he's learning. He's learning from me.
I'm picking it up.
That if I don't answer a certain question, then it's for a reason.
And some people want the freak show.
Yes.
Yeah,
know,
and
right.
I'm not a freak.
Yeah, we're not there to provide
Entertainment.
We're not a circus.
Yeah.
We're not a circus act.
Right. Right.
We can't do things magically on cue. And part of that, like we talk about which one am I, is the depiction in the media.
Yes.
In the media, it's all shorthand, and
Yes.
I think we up here in LA know that. I don't think everybody other places really realizes that.
Perception is reality, and
The
to
perception
them,
is reality.
the book, the movies,
And
these
perception
that
is
you.
not 100% reality. I mean, like United States of Terror, when the first series I saw of that was the last series. The first
Right.
episode was the last episode
Right.
because the way that they perceived her was a joke.
Yes.
And the woman that actually has this disability that they created the show off of, to me, is a sellout.
Right.
She
sold out her illness
She sold
for
out
this.
her respect for herself and respect for others, like
Yes.
me and her.
Yes.
But we interviewed her and the doctor, both of whom, well, there are a lot of doctors interviewed for this book, but
Yes.
also the doctor, both of who were helped out the United States of Terror.
Yes.
I did get, gets right back to that shorthand thing. They both said, I had the same line for both of them. You got to understand how Hollywood works.
Right.
I've been in Hollywood since I was 15. I know how it works.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't mean it should.
Right.
And that's where we are trying to correct. It's we've got a long road
Yes.
ahead of us. This
And-
is something we got to do for the rest of our lives.
Right. A true representation of what this is. If I may ask, please. I know you already stated that. Don't answer any question that you don't feel comfortable
Oh, I
answering.
won't.
You won't.
Don't worry.
What I do want to ask a little bit about, the whole genesis. You were young. How were your teenage years? Because you didn't discover this until you were 30. Am I correct?
Well, I discovered that I was different when I was in my teens. And
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
I started noticing that I was different.
Okay.
Not that, and I thought it was just something that all teenagers go through, but
Right.
it turned out
Sure.
not to be.
Right. It was something more than just normal adapting and changing to
Right.
surroundings.
Yes.
There was something actually happening within you.
Yes, sir.
Now, were your personalities exhibited then, or were they just started?
Oh, yeah.
So they exhibited since you were a child, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
His personalities may have actually predated his birth. Some psychiatrists are now, positing that the split could actually be caused by the trauma of birth itself.
Okay.
Of course, there's no real way of proving that.
Right.
Although in Darrell's case, the dominant personality is named Billy. He's 2 years old.
2 years old.
2 years old. And
Okay.
he is the dominant amongst all of the others. And there's some 24, 27 now.
Right.
And Billy, we cannot trace his genesis.
There is no lineage back.
There's no
Okay.
lineage back. There's no way of going back. And so we sort of have to go with the fact that, as he says, I've always been there.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So you mentioned 25. So there's 25 right now, different
So far.
personalities.
So far that
So
we know
far.
of.
And
But there could be more.
yes.
I know of only 25.
Right.
Okay, but
Yes.
I could always find out that there could be more than 100. It's hard to say
Right.
really how many a person does have,
Yes.
because a lot of people don't understand either that a person with this disability, their personalities can also create personalities,
Right.
and
Yes.
it's just like a house of cards that you keep building and building and building, and it never
It's never
ends.
ending. Yes. Yes.
But you're just praying one day that it might end.
Right.
And
But it won't. I mean, most people outgrow it.
Yes.
Once the human brain is programmed, that's what happens with the DID. That's when the abuse happens. That's why the age of 6 is the cutoff.
Right.
And once the brain gets used to dealing with stress and trauma
In a particular fashion.
in a particular fashion,
In a normal
then
fashion.
that is always the way
how it
they're
deals
dealing
with it.
stress and trauma.
That's interesting because I was thinking something similar when you were saying about Billy. He's 2 and he's always been. Has anyone ever mentioned that maybe a personality pops up because of a particular event or a particular time frame? So something happened at the age of 2 that was in a particular way. So Billy came up to,
Yes, on both.
support
yes,
that.
on both accounts.
Yes, on both of those.
Oh, okay.
They have different triggers, but they don't. Well, as I say in the book, part of the reading that I usually do is that they represent, to a certain extent, they always live in the time that created them. So therefore, that event, that time in Darrell's life is happening now.
Yes.
Will continue to happen forever.
Right.
And-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, was as you're mentioning this, I'm thinking, you Darrell, you don't interact with the other.
Oh, yes, I do.
Oh, you do. Oh, so you're able to interact with Billy.
I am now.
Oh, okay. Now let me ask. I'm sure this is something that the therapists have gone through. Are you able to not confront, but speak with Billy and say that yes, it did. Validation. Yes, that happened, but this is no longer happening. I Darrell, am the dominant one. This is my life.
Yeah.
Billy, I learned to handle that situation now. So thank you. I love you, and please, have the
That won't happen.
Okay.
That is a misconception too of
Yeah.
fusion. I don't believe in fusion. It is only cohabitation
right.
and conversation.
Oh, okay.
We always have we always talk. It's always communication between us.
Right.
That I know that they'll always be there. They know I'm always going to be there.
Yeah.
They have, and they also, we've learned to live as a family.
Right. Right.
I may have had a family per se, but I didn't have a family.
Right.
And they realize that what they do to the body can also harm them. And because if they hurt me, they hurt themselves. If I die, they die.
Okay, so there is an understanding that there has to be some sort of control.
Right.
Okay, so there is that conversation
Yes,
at least.
yes,
Okay.
very much so.
Okay.
I'll clarify also something else that I tried to clarify, which one am I? Is that, which is a little hard to put someone's mind around. They aren't just attached to the events that created them. Some of them take their personality traits from people Darrell was, and some from people he wanted to be. Some from people he knew, some parts from people he wanted to know. So they're very well-rounded, fully rounded personalities in people. So to say your original hypothesis, just okay, yes, we've dealt with this, let's move on. Well, then you've got all these other personality traits.
Right.
They're well-rounded personalities, and who would want somebody as cute as Billy to go away? No, I mean real.
Right. Right.
And no, when I was younger, I wish this hadn't happened before I found out that I was meant to have this. I don't consider it a curse anymore. I consider it as a gift from God.
Yeah.
And this is my journey in my life that I have to live.
Right.
Even though it started out painful and how the process happened and why it happened, I
Right.
may have not liked.
Yes.
But learning to understand God's will and having them is like souls without bodies that were born, but there's only born within me. and I carry those, what I call my angels. They are me at different times and stages of my life, through the traumas that I've gone. They were there when I needed them. So as far as trying to get rid of them, no, I would never. Even if I could, I would never.
Too much attachment, too much meaning for you at this point.
Because it's my journey. It's what God gave me to learn how to live life.
Right.
And to help others.
Well, and thank you for sharing that. 'Cause I know there are, tons of other people in just everyday life that have, who I find it difficult to handle, just one personality.
Oh, yeah.
So, you having, multiple friends. Do you call them friends? You call them companions? Your kids?
My family.
And, sharing some of those tools, we can help someone who has, don't have the tools just for one. Again, thank you for coming in, and sharing the stories. And we still got 2 more segments, so plenty of time to talk. All right, thank you. You bet. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you're listening to The In Show. And we have in-studio guests, Mr. Darrell Williams and Mr. Tom Smith, and they're talking about their lives and their book, Which One Am I? And we're going to have a lot more in their next segment, so you hang in there. We'll be right back. And this is The In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We got another great show. We have in-studio guests, Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams. They wrote a wonderful book called Which One Am I? And it's based on Darrell's life.
Yes, sir.
Now, does it start from early childhood to present, or is there a specific time frame that it focuses on? How's that?
It's before his birth.
Okay.
All the way, really, it
Starts with
ends,
my mother and my father that I grew up with.
All right.
And we take it all the way through to really where our story begins.
Oh, okay.
Because we had to end it somewhere.
Yeah, it can be continuous, right? It could be constantly good. So it's not an autobiography, in a sense. It's more of bringing light to the condition that you have. Am I correct?
There's 3 different stories.
Okay, please.
The main story is his biography / autobiography. It's in the 3rd person, so I guess it's more of a biography.
Okay.
That's the original book. That's what we intended to write.
Okay.
But then, along the lines, talking about an earlier segment, I came up, my journalist background just wouldn't let me ignore the why question, and so that ended up putting in the history of DID, which is a parallel history from 3 Faces of Eve through Sybil through, who else makes appearances in there? McMartin Preschool, the Hillside Strangler case, the United States of Terror, even famous books that had come out that influenced how DID was perceived.
Yes.
Now, in the midst of this, actually, we were probably I was about a quarter of the way through the writing originally, and we were calling around trying to find out people who knew him when he was younger and who knew his mother. And we remembered, we mentioned earlier, Bertha Merriman, his mother's best friend. Well, as far as he knew, she was dead. That's what he'd been told. His brother Ronnie, the eldest brother, had told him that she'd long ago passed away, killed herself, died of a broken heart, all that stuff. So I went out looking for her son. I found her son, well, at least the phone number for her son, called that phone number. Turns out he was dead. I talked to his widow, and she says, well, would you like to talk to Bertha Merriman? I went, really? So we're standing in the kitchen. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I've got Bertha on the phone. Coming to the phone. She goes, hi. She goes, is James Darrell there with you? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, we'll put him on the phone. So I said, okay. Sure. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I handed the phone, and he goes, James. And this is the first we've ever heard of this. James Darrell, you ain't no James Darrell Williams. You're James Darrell Jackson. And she went on to explain that his mother had an affair with her uncle, who was named James Darrell Jackson.
Not my mother's uncle, her aunt, my aunt's uncle, my
Yeah.
cousin's uncle,
Bertha's
uncle.
uncle. There's a lot of names to go around in this book. It's hard even for us to keep them straight sometimes.
Well, a lot of people
And-
think people in the South all have brothers, sister relations. Not true.
And so, yeah, really. And his uncle, his birth father was called Monkey. James Darrell Monkey Jackson, which is what it says on his tombstone, as we saw when we went back there.
Long names.
But this completely upended everything he believed.
Right.
And it reconfirmed. I mean, he'd always had the feeling that his father, R.D. Williams, was not his father.
Because you had mentioned that earlier.
Ian.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Never
suspected.
asked me.
Well, this confirmed that, but it also opened up this whole other world. Okay, what happened? Why did you wait 40 years to let slip this news?
Right.
I mean, the short answer to that is that Bertha Merriman was told by his brother Ronnie that Darrell was dead. And,
By having a sex change in Florida.
yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I may become a woman at times, but
you
I
have not
still
had
like
sex.
what's
No.
between my, Be good on the radio, I like what I have.
And so this opened up this whole other exploration. So that's the third story of us going back to Tennessee,
Oh,
meeting the
Lord.
Jacksons, who Bertha had promised us she was going to, quote, greet us with open arms. We were going to go to all the places where he'd grown up, because we had a lot of research left to do. We
Right.
wanted to go to libraries. We needed to go back to his hometowns, the places he'd been grown up, places he'd been thrown out of, places, all that sort of stuff. She was going to use her car, take us all those places, and not a bit of it happened.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, we had planned to stay there for 11 days, and 3 days into our trip, pretty much they let us know that was it.
Wow. Is it just because they didn't want to pursue the history of this?
We
They just
haven't
kept.
the foggiest.
We have no clue.
You think someone
why.
talked to so and so talked to so and so, and that was pretty much the end of it there.
Quite possibly. So we ended
Right.
up on Beale Street. I mean, the whole idea of the trip was going back looking for family.
Well,
Right.
I had them dump us on Beale Street because I'd never been to Beale Street. This was my one and only chance.
I figured that the reason why it ended is because of, well, number one, here I am, a 42-year-old gay person, another one in the family, and that has multiple personality disorder and whatever else. And I bring my husband with me, of all things.
Right.
Right.
And she could not take her eyes off of Tom. The whole
I am good looking.
trip from the airport back, and it was like, Bertha, I'm over here. Then later on, I asked her, I says, do you have a problem with Tom? Oh, no.
Right.
Being gay is okay with us. We have, cousins and
Well,
We
and
have
I'm
friends that aren't.
They
Yeah,
do.
right,
actually.
yeah, they do,
There's a
but-
lot of gays in his family.
it's like, okay. I knew it was a ball-faced lie, but she really couldn't
Right.
accept that part. By
Sure.
her grandson asked a question about
Oh,
out
no,
here
Don't start that one.
Yeah.
Not on
that
the air.
I would
we
not.
Can't do this on
no,
air.
we can't do this on the air because I do not want to offend anybody in California.
Probably get kicked off
or
the air. Kicked off the air.
kicked off the air, or have you?
Understand.
Anyway, so the short end of the story was
Understand.
they ended up leaving us on Beale Street.
Yes.
Okay.
None of the promises they made had come true.
Mhm.
Although we did meet the Jacksons. I mean, I can't say we didn't bring. We did bring back things. We do have
Yes, my
a
birth.
photo of his birth father, who looks very shortly before his death, who looks just like him.
Right.
And the record from his father's funeral, and we did see pictures
his
of
death certificate
his
and
death
his birth certificate.
which also brings up a whole lot of other questions. But nevertheless, we're here on Beale Street. We have no money,
Right.
no food,
Yeah.
no transportation. Our plane doesn't leave for another week, and so I called a friend, somebody I'd met on Craigslist, and Mary Barnick got her husband Bo Kurgis, who we'd never even heard of, to drive 3 hours down from the Ozarks, picked us up in Beale Street, put us up in their place, fed us, took us everywhere Bertha had promised that she'd take us.
Wow.
And, we found family. But
Yes.
it wasn't the family we went
To
looking
find.
for,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
find.
So,
And was it, and you know, I know I'd asked, you know, you really don't know the reason why. It's speculation on your part. Do you think it was just, as we mentioned earlier, that maybe they didn't want to open this, you know, this Pandora's box again? And
Partially. Yeah, we are questioning a lot of family, well, I guess you charitably call it family history,
Right.
but in reality it's more like family fiction.
Right.
And we're upending that.
Yes.
And by the time we'd reached them, we'd already upended a lot of the stories they'd been telling him and themselves for more than 40 years.
So you think it's just every family has a secret or
honey,
secrets?
not as many secrets as my family.
So
Yeah, they
has.
do.
So do you think it's just you guys were letting the cat out of the bag and they don't want to deal with it? What has been the partly? So what has been the response? Now the book is out. You're doing it. You do your tours and any feedback from them? And has anybody
no.
no, just
You know, they don't even know the book's out.
okay.
And, you know, because, you know, like Aunt Mary once said when they opened up a bookstore in the South, that you can't sell books to illiterates.
And literally, actually.
And literally,
That
they can.
we
That is
know-
how bad it is back there as
I
far as
understand.
schooling and
We
stuff.
know that the brother closest in age to Darrell is illiterate,
Okay.
as was his, I'm not sure what to call him, his father,
Yes.
Yeah, my dad, R.D.
R.D. Williams. He
He
couldn't,
couldn't
he ne-
read, write, or spell. He didn't even know how to write his own name,
No.
so he signed an X.
They don't like school. And we
Yeah.
kind of suspect that Bertha may be illiterate as well,
Oh,
because
okay.
we've written her
She's never responded to any letters, any
Nothing.
cards,
Okay.
anything. like
nothing
that.
we've ever put in
Yeah.
writing. So
amazing,
so-
amazing. So you have this story chronicling your life and your condition, and no one in your family knows about it, and is not even able to read it if they knew about it.
They know about it, but they don't want to accept the fact that they could have stopped it, and they didn't. They didn't stop the abuse. They
Yeah.
didn't stop the horror that was portrayed upon me.
Right.
So I was basically the scapegoat.
So you're able to you literally had to leave and get out
Yes.
yeah.
and move away to find
To survive.
To survive.
Even today, we get one of two responses from his family,
Yeah.
from his brothers, and from his
Right.
siblings.
That's
that-
so long ago. Or leave it in the past.
Right.
Or I don't
or I
remember.
don't remember.
Of course, that's always the thing. You know, we have to take a quick commercial break, but real quick, where can people find your book?
Amazon has it, or just go through our website at whichoneami.net, and there's a buy link right on there, and we're all over the web. We're just all over the place.
Fantastic. Again, you know, thank you for coming. We still got one more segment, so
That's-
you want to definitely squeeze in as much as possible on
Okay,
that one.
absolutely.
Okay.
Much as you want.
All right, fantastic. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you've been listening to The In Show. And we have in-studio guests, Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams, and we're going to have a lot more of them in our next and last segment. So you hang in there, and we'll be right back. And this is The In Show, and I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We have in-studio guests, Mr. Darrell Williams and Mr. Tom Smith, and we've been discussing their book, Which One Am I? And that chronicles your life,
Yes, sir.
Darrell, up to the time that you met Tom. You know, this segment just isn't enough time to cover.
No, it's not.
Everything. I know it was something that condition that happened to you at home. By the time you said that this condition is pretty solidified by the age of 6.
Mhm.
Your teen years, you were kind of discovering all this, and your 20s and up to about to your 30s really is where you finally cemented that this is what's happened to me, this is who I am. And has it been the journey since about that time? And did I chronicle that correctly?
I started learning about it when I was like 20.
Okay.
And learning about it, it's taken 22 and a half years to learn about it, and I still haven't learned everything. But I've learned how to cope with them, be cohesive with them, and learn what their wants are, what their dislikes are,
Yeah.
it's basically a vice versa, just like living in a family. It's just like a brother, sister,
personality,
mom,
yeah.
dad. You know, you just learn what each other wants
Needs,
and what
right.
their needs are and what my needs are and what they're there for, and not only what they're there for, because I don't perceive it that is they're there for me right at it anymore. Now I'm
Right.
there for them.
Yeah. You know, I did want to ask for our listeners about some of the tools that maybe that you've developed, or some of your friends and doctors have, provided you that might enable someone else to come to grips with this condition. Maybe they don't know they have it, or maybe just dealing with themselves. Is there a few key things that you do?
Well, when they act up, I told them that they have their own rooms. So you tell them that they have a room or a house even. You can tell them they have a whole world, and they can see that. They can create that. No, Tigger, stop. And it's like I tell them that if you do this, you go in your room, okay? They have to go in their room. They have to do what I tell them to do. It used to be the other way around, is because I didn't know how that I could do this, that I had the right, I have the authority to tell them what to do, and they have to do it,
Right.
or they can suffer the consequences.
Right.
And
And that's the consequences, meaning if they lash out or something that happens.
yes,
So
they will go in, they will be sent into the room for as long as I feel necessary. And it's
Kidding around.
like a timeout.
Yeah,
It's
right.
basically like sending a child to the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And they refuse to do that, then I just let Billy take care of them.
I gotcha. Billy comes out and does the
Yeah.
crazy things. And I know earlier you had said that at this stage now that you're aware when outside forces are affecting you and that may trigger these personalities to come out. So that's also a key, I'm assuming, to be aware of your
Yes,
surroundings
you
and other
very much
individuals.
want to know your surroundings. Find out what your triggers are that causes your personalities to be out. You learn as much as possible. You learn and you listen. You talk to each other. And if you have anyone, I suggest that if you have problems with any one of your personalities not listening to you, then you seek help, period, anyway. I mean, you always seek help.
Right.
But if you cannot keep them all under control, like there's always an adverbial team that doesn't like the caregiver,
Sure.
as Tom talks about.
That's one of the problems that a lot of DID caregivers.
You
Right.
just learn to
Yeah.
to be able to understand what each other needs, what the needs are, what the wants are, what
Right.
vice versa.
Sure.
That that there are consequences not only for me but for them.
For them. So a lot of those books that you have out there, where it says how to deal with a difficult person or how to deal with situations, could also be a little guide. It sounds like it's basically kind of the same things. Know their needs or wants, what
Well,
triggers them.
sometimes, but I basically, you learn yourself. You learn what your needs were that were not met, and that finally you've got your needs met, so you transfer that over to them and
Yes.
talk to them and tell them about, well, this helped me, so this is what I feel that you have to do, and if you can't obey by this, then we're going to have a problem, and I know you don't want a problem.
Right. So you personally are basically taking charge, like you had said earlier. You're
Yeah,
not
you
letting
have
them. You're
have-
setting the
you have
ground
to.
rules, and you're setting the example.
You have to. And there are times that I may be at a point where I'm weakest, where I'm like either sick or I'm just not feeling good. Or
They take
if
advantage
there's-
of those
or
moments.
if I'm outside and I forget to think about my surroundings. They're always there to be there for my surroundings and everything, to be there for my protection.
Right. Have you noticed if they've become, as you've taken this role, I guess leader or what have you, have they now become more protective of you versus more harmful? Were they ever harmful? No.
They've never really been harmful.
Okay.
They were always protective.
Okay.
And I had to learn what the difference was. It was me that had to learn,
Right.
not them, because they
Yes.
knew what their role was.
Yes.
I didn't. So until I learned what their roles were and why, that that's what I mean by you have to talk to each other. You have to
Right.
talk. It's
Yeah.
always conversation,
Right.
because you may find out something totally different.
Yes.
And, you know.
So at that point, when they feel, that you understand them and they understand you, you're taking that leadership. Do they relinquish a little bit? Are they a little easier to handle, or are they still as difficult? I understand that
They're-
you're here at this time, but we got to set these ground rules. Is there a difference in personality as you've become? I don't know. I don't want to call it
It's-
stronger or more aware of your role.
Basically, I let them be them and they let me be me. That's it. I don't force them into not trying to protect me, because that's their role. That's what they were there. That's what they were
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
for.
And they do, there are the unexpected triggers. I
Yeah,
mean, we're up here in Hollywood. There's a section, we do mention Hollywood. He lived here.
Somebody lived here.
Somebody lived here. But there are triggers all up and down, all over this city. Santa
Right.
Monica Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard. We don't know what happened. He doesn't know what happened. We know that, we're pretty sure that James, who was the protector inside, did live here, because James will always point out places that he recognizes,
Right.
but he won't tell me what happened.
Oh,
And
he'll
it
tell
gets-
Darrell.
He won't tell.
Oh, he won't tell Darrell.
tell
It just-
anybody.
Oh, I see. I
See,
see. Okay.
they are there too to protect me from things that I don't know and things that they do.
Right.
That they will not tell me anything if they feel that I cannot handle it. I have to
Right.
be able to handle the situation for what they're about to tell me. And if they feel that I'm not able to handle it, they will not say anything.
Right.
They
And
will
we,
not do anything.
during the process, we talked to at least a couple of other multiples. Mostly, actually, they were both women, who, all three of them were women. There's three of them who have what is called a DID parlance, firstborn. So the firstborn
interesting.
child, which is Darrell.
Right.
But for these women, that firstborn, they felt that life has been so unfair, so difficult, so traumatic, that the firstborn could not handle it. So there no longer is
A
a
firstborn.
firstborn.
Oh.
She's been kept asleep
Oh,
inside.
I see.
Life has gone on, and as far as the firstborn is concerned, she's still whatever age it
Protected
was.
and
She's
secure.
being protected.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting.
She's inside the body, either asleep or living her life as a child or as an adult, but she just doesn't know that the reality of it is
Of what's happening
is
outside.
happening, yes.
Mhm.
And the other ones are
All
dealing
yeah.
with life.
And
Dealing with
it
life.
also, they have to switch back and forth between personalities and everything, because a person with the disorder most time the personality cannot last no more than 30 minutes at a time.
Okay.
And
Oh,
some
interesting.
can last up to a few hours.
Right.
But
if there's no first personality,
firstborn.
they'll be jumping frequently to the other ones.
Yeah.
Interesting.
to
Okay.
keep the body alive.
They call that in DRD parlance again. That's a revolving door syndrome. Actually, the revolving door syndrome means also that you would go to a therapist and then quit going, and then go back and then quit going.
Yes.
But it also means where the personalities, the people inside, I hate calling them personalities,
Right.
I
they
do
would
too.
come out one after another, fully formed. And that's generally in situations where they're confused as to who really needs to be there to handle the situation.
Now, do they interact with each other? Do they counsel each other about the next
Yeah.
moment? So
Oh, yeah.
when,
Oh,
so when,
yeah, they
okay,
are.
this is where we're at. This is what's happening, and then that
Yeah.
personality comes out and tells us.
It's all
Okay.
about, it's just like a
Communication,
family. It's just
yeah.
like us sitting here talking and
Yes.
everything. You know, we know we're going to have to be leaving in a few minutes, and because by the finger things you do, so, and that, it's basically that in that situation and everything.
There was one night in the middle of the night. I just got to tell
I'm
you
sorry,
this.
how
No,
was it? I
this one
see
up.
it.
No, no.
That we had the little ones inside Darrell. All of us, they got into this like little argument
Yeah.
because one of them, my boy, Dot always tends to repeat his name, dot, dot, dot. And everything to him is dot, dot, dot. And Billy and Jimmy got really mad at him. I was like, not everything can be dot, dot, dot. It's just like-
And this was in the middle of a big dinner party somewhere?
No,
or
in the
was
middle
it-
of the night.
Middle of the night,
Yeah.
okay.
I was asleep. He was asleep. but they,
Yeah.
They were bickering
He
back
was
and
asleep,
forth.
but the kids were out arguing back and forth behind that. I didn't think it's cute.
That's a great little story to end on. The kids bickering back and forth. We reached the end of our time.
Oh,
well, we'll have to come
great.
back.
Yes,
Because there's a lot.
There's a lot
I don't
more
want to
tell.
give, I don't want to give too much away. I want people to actually buy the book,
yes, absolutely.
to learn it, to read from the beginning to the end, or come to our readings and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's wonderful.
Just-
Yes,
Or contact us,
Or
which you're also
contact us.
more than welcome to do
Yeah.
through whichoneami.net.
perfect. That's what I was going
Or
to
they
ask.
can even have my personal number if it's someone that actually thinks that they have someone in their family at 562-528-2100.
All right.
And then I will pick up the phone and I will be willing to meet you. You have to come to Long Beach, though. I will not come to LA if I don't have to. But, or you can always meet me at Hot Java at the corner of Broadway and Unapero in the city of Long Beach, California.
That's our big
Wonderful.
hangout.
That's
your
my
big-
hangout where you can reach me.
Okay, fantastic. Again, Darrell, courageous. Thank you for bringing your story. Tom, what a wonderful support. And
thank you
I'm
for
glad we
having us.
connected and had the opportunity
He's the
to.
bravest guy I've ever met.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, thank you for coming in and sharing your story.
Thank you for having us,
sir.
guys.
You bet, you bet. All right, well, this is Gus Summers, and you've been listening to The In Show. And we had in-studio guests Mr. Tom Smith and Mr. Darrell Williams. And be sure to look for their book, Which One Am I?, which chronicles a lot of what happened with Darrell and his life and his relationship with Tom. And be sure to visit us at theinshow.com, where you can catch up on everything that we're doing, of course. And be sure to look for us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and all those great social media sites. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.